developments in nuclear power during the 1940s, 1960s showed how powerful these weapons are. The World War II bombing of Hiroshima is famous, but few realize it harmed the pilots of Enola, or that Australia was targeted by a bomb in 1962. One of the more bizarre stories is this guy who was exposed to radiation twice. Then there are the scientists who bombed beer and then drank it. 10. First nuclear test created something impossible. On July 16, 1945, the first ever atomic bomb test happened in Oklahoma. The blast left a new kind of mineral behind, trinitite, which looked like green glass and had nothing mysterious about it. The glass was formed by the explosion of geological materials which fused together. But decades later, something was discovered inside the glass that rocked the scientific world. Called quasicrystals, these were thought to be myth. All crystals have atoms that are arranged in an orderly or disorderly fashion. A crystal with in-between traits could not exist, but in 1984, they were acknowledged in theory and called quasicrystals. Quasicrystals were eventually discovered in meteorites and were finally found on Earth as well, confirming the theory of their existence. Quasicrystals are found to exist under extreme temperature, shock, and pressure. It was only until the discovery of quasicrystals inside the meteorite when it was realized that they are formed by atomic blasts. Scientists discovered this one-of-a-kind grain of organic matter that has 20 sides and an internal structure nobody can explain. 9. Operation Teapot. For decades, the Nevada desert has been used as a testing ground for nuclear weapons. Operation Teapot was just one of these experiments, and it attempted to answer an unusual question. Can you drink beer that survived a nuclear attack? In 1955, bottles of soda and beer were arranged at a test site. Some bottles were placed near ground zero, barely 322 meters, 1,056 feet away. Other bottles were placed a few miles off. Operation Teapot detonated 14 nuclear bombs. Only 2 were used to test the drinks, but they were powerful blasts equal to 20 and 30 kilotons respectively. Once the dust settled, researchers approached the scene. The bravest had a sip of beer and proclaimed it to taste good except for the bottles closest to the explosion. Fortunately, further tests revealed that radioactivity in the drinks was very low. 8. American honey is radioactive. One teacher wanted to prove his students a lesson about how fallout from nuclear tests can have long-term effects. He gave his pupils an assignment where they were tasked with bringing a type of food from a local grocery store to school. As predicted, various samples contained faint traces of cesium-137, a radioactive isotope found in fallout. The team found that around 68% of samples contained the radioactive isotope. They were surprised by how widespread the contamination was. But why is honey so hot? Plants absorb the isotope from Earth and store it in nectar. It becomes even more concentrated when bees turn nectar into honey. According to researchers, honey lovers should be at ease. The radioactivity levels are not high enough to pose a threat. 7. The glass beaches of Hiroshima. A geologist named Mario Wanier was sorting through sand samples in 2015. They were collected from Hiroshima port to see if the marine ecosystems of the Moto-Ujina Peninsula were healthy or not. But Mario soon noticed something odd: tiny glass spheres he had never seen before in his life. The beads were in various shapes and sizes. Some of them looked like they had been melted with tails. Others had a rubber-like composition. Analysis of the glass indicated that it was from the atomic bomb that had been dropped on Hiroshima. The university then examined the particles, which showed metals, crystals, carbon, and even oxygen. Happily, the study revealed that they were indeed vaporized buildings. When the bomb dropped, all Hiroshima's materials traveled upward with the flames. The building rubble melted and cooled inside the atomic cloud, where the pressure subsided and rain began to fall back down on Earth. 6. The mysterious Vela incident. In 1979, There were several satellites in orbit. One of them, Vela 5b, detected an unauthorized nuclear detonation on September 22nd. Experts agree that the explosion was likely a nuclear bomb. The event exhibited all the classic signs, including a double flash and an atmospheric wave. Although this was a large explosion, it could not have been a bomb. Past experience has shown that such an Armageddon, if that's what you're talking about, would have resulted in significant radioactive fallout, and if the police hadn't found any other evidence supporting your claim, we're inclined to believe them. However, there are people out there that remain convinced that it was another nuclear test. So who else might have done it? The leading theory is that South Africa and Israel conducted a joint test. Other possible suspects include France, India, and Pakistan. Nobody has admitted anything, but all of the nations have thermonuclear capabilities. 5. The Maralinga nuclear tests. Maralinga in Australia was the site of 7 atomic bomb tests, which were conducted between 1956 and 1963. This area was chosen by the British since they thought it uninhabited at the time. It's disturbing that Australia's Prime Minister, Robert Menzies, allowed the tests without first taking it to cabinet for review. One bomb was twice as powerful as the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima, and we know we can never use one of those again. There are also smaller cases where people would test plutonium by setting it on fire or blasting it with TNT. The fallout reached Townsville, Brisbane, Sydney, and Adelaide. Servicemen were exposed to the tests, and 30% of them eventually died of cancer. Many suspect that scientists used the bomb to carry out research on humans instead of animals. 4. The terrifying Tsar Bomba. When nuclear weapons were developed, the Soviet Union wanted to prove they were still capable of military invention. To do so, they built the Tsar Bomba, meaning the Tsar's bomb. This machine was 8 meters long, weighing 27 tons. In 1961, the decision was made to test it in a remote area called Novaya Zemlya. It created so much destruction that the plane's crew had a 50% chance of dying. So the plane flew to the test site and dropped the bomb before it reached its target. What happened next was horrific. The bomb blew up and only just missed the plane, even though it was 30 miles away. Even so, they'd been so far away from their target that they escaped from being hurt. The mushroom cloud soared upwards and grew a cap that measured 100 kilometers, 63 miles, wide. A village 55 kilometers, 34 miles, away was completely destroyed, and for hundreds of miles more, homes were severely damaged. The Tsar bomber released unbelievable amounts of energy beyond comprehension, which led to extreme devastation. The blast energy of the Tsar Bomba was 1,500 more powerful than the one dropped on Hiroshima. The frightening thing is that the bomb was originally twice as powerful. However, because designers were worried about fallout affecting the USSR, it was decided to reduce it to a capacity of 50 megatons. 3. Enola gay pilot meets Japanese victim. Koko Kondo was 8 months old when the world's first atomic bomb exploded over Hiroshima. Her house collapsed, but her mother managed to free them from the rubble. As she grew up, she saw many victims who were mutilated due to the atomic bomb blast. Her that one U.S. bomber killed her loved ones, Koko swore revenge on the American crew. At age 10, she had the chance to visit the USA on a TV show. The studio had a big surprise. For Koko's shock, the host introduced them to the pilot of the Enola gay. It was Captain Robert Louis who had famously looked back at Hiroshima after the bombing and written in the plane's logbook, "My God, what have we done?" When this little girl saw tears in Louis's eyes, she had a change of heart. Instead of running away, she walked up to him and said, "I want to be your new friend." After beating Louis in 1981, Koko wished she had thanked him before he died because she realized that different people have different feelings about war. 2. The other pilot, turned to crime. Major Claude Eatherly played an important part in history when he piloted the B-29 weather aircraft around Hiroshima and Nagasaki to check on visibility levels. Once he found visibility to be sufficient, the Major gave the go-ahead. None of them knew what was coming next, though. Eatherly experienced firsthand how bad it could get and recalls all this trauma in horror even today. They hopped back and forth between psychiatric institutions and remained haunted by these memories of all those bombings. It's unclear if Roy had an agenda or he just really wanted some food. But either way, he was very unsuccessful. After being caught, he was released by a jury who believed that the bombings had driven him insane. But at the time of his arrest, Eatherly was just deeply traumatized. After all he had been through in his life, he turned to being an anti-nuclear activist. He died from cancer when he was only 59 years old. Mr. Eatherly changed the course of history for Hiroshima, and there he said, "I gave the order." In a rare statement of regret, he added, "I have never been able to forget this responsibility or regret it. I did what I thought was right." 1. This guy got nuked twice. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was looking forward to going home. He lived in Nagasaki, but on his last day of a business trip in Hiroshima on 6 August 1945, he saw the Enola Gay drop the bomb while he was walking near a shipyard. Fearing death, he hid inside one of the buildings at the site of where it landed. The shock wave lifted him up in the air and burned his skin. Badly wounded, Yamaguchi tried to get back to his family in Nagasaki. He had to wade through a river filled with bodies just to reach the train station. The train arrived in Nagasaki. Yamaguchi began the long walk home. His own mother did not recognize him due to the burns. On August 9, Yamaguchi was at work, trying to convince his boss that a single bomb had taken out Hiroshima. His superior told him that he was insane. The irony was that only around the time when Nagasaki was nuked did his office get flooded by radiation too. This blast tore through the office and ripped off the bandages he had placed on himself, severely irradiating Yamaguchi. Although Mr. Yamaguchi was affected with terrible radiation sickness and cured himself by using the gas hydrocyanic acid, he lived to be at 93. He received a special title from the government for his bravery and is the only recognized person with 2 attacks by them under such circumstance. The Chernobyl disaster is the most well-known nuclear explosion to date. This disaster caused radiation to spread for miles, causing thousands of casualties and long-term consequences. After the incident, many other nuclear power plants were shut down. New regulations were put in place in order to improve safety standards for future generations. With these new regulations in place, there has not been any other incident like Chernobyl since.